Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome inside the latest edition of Across the Cavs on Thursday, December 28th, 2023, the belated birthday today of the late Melvin Turpin, who would have turned 73, or rather 63, lost way too young, 3 years with the Cavs in the 80s, a solid career there, and John Henson, known mostly for his Bucks career, was traded to Cleveland alongside Matthew Dellavedova for George Hill and what was Delly's triumphant return to the lands. And December 28th, 2010, Alonzo G, a teammate of today's guest, will be introducing in just a second. 4 years with Cleveland in the non-LeBron years, played extremely well, threw down some dunks, had a 19-point first quarter, carved out a nice 6-7 year career in the league after bouncing around team to team prior to landing in Cleveland. Alonzo G signing with the Cavs 13 years ago today. Today's guest really doesn't need an introduction. We'll give him one anyway. He is currently playing professionally in Japan in the B League for the Sun Rockers Shibuya. He's in a league with 14 other NBA draft picks. He spent 32 games with Cleveland in the 12-13 season. He's been on here before. His name is Kevin Jones, also part of the Best Virginia pod. A pleasure, Kevin, that we to get you back on and we can talk today.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
So this is Across the Cavs on Network 216. We're talking all things Japan basketball, modern NBA, and more on Network 216. All right, Kevin Jones, a pleasure to welcome you back. And we are going to get to what you're doing in Japan, thoughts on the modern NBA, how the game has kind of changed since you've been out. But I want to start, and we were talking about this a little bit before the game. So you mentioned that even though you're playing in Japan, so for you, it's 11 p.m. right now, whereas it's 9 a.m. here on the East Coast, but you're still following the NBA. So we'll talk Cavs in a second, but thoughts on, I guess, the state of the league and some of your favorites that you're enjoying right now.
I love the way the league is going right now. It's a lot of excitement, a lot of scoring going on, a lot of entertainment. So many young, bright stars coming up. I mean, you got Anthony Edwards, you got Victor Wembanyama, you got Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, just to name a few of guys that are really carving out a niche in this league and showing what they can do. And the inception of the in-season tournament this year, I feel like added a lot more onto that excitement for this season. I really didn't know what it was going to be, what it was going to look like. But, once it played out, it was a lot of excitement around it. It was kind of felt like the playoffs again. So that was cool to see. And I try to keep up with it as much as I can. Like I told you, I'm 14 hours ahead. So I'll mostly only catch the West Coast teams play because they play later on at night. So I'll try to keep up with that when I wake up in the morning.
And honestly, there can't be anything better than NBA live basketball because in my lifetime, so you're older than I am by a couple of years, but I think there's only been, that I can remember, one game that started early. I don't even know if it was live. Kind of Celtics-Pistons game from the early 2000s. I don't know if it was live. The score was 70-64, something crazy like that. I just remember it started at 11 a.m. Eastern time on the screen. I don't remember if it was like, back in the day before we had the live on every show. Is it new? Is it old? Is it a rerun? They've gotten very good at technology now.
Right. It's crazy because that score is like a halftime score now, 70-64. Teams are scoring that at half.
That's that Celtics Lakers all over again. Even though in real time, it's funny, and I'm sure it's the same for you watching growing up. But we see these games that are 80-75, and we're not batting an eye at the low score. We're just hoping that the team we're rooting for, the guys we like, get buckets, right? We're not worried, are they going to score enough to hit these averages, these overs? It's just, okay, I guess scoring 90 or 100 will be a big deal today. And it really wasn't a big thing, whereas now it's like, oh, they scored 98. Yikes.
Right. It's crazy because I feel like football is kind of going in this direction too, where I feel like the league wants more high power offense, and I get it from an entertainment standpoint, but just like as a basketball purist watching the game, sometimes you like close, low scoring games. I feel like it has to be a balance. Everything can't be 140 to 135. You know what I mean? Sometimes those games kind of get less exciting as well. I feel like you got to have some kind of balance, some kind of, you know, defense. And I get, I get the points and tickets. I mean, the points and everything are flashy and they sell tickets, but I still feel like defense wins championships at the end of the day.
Yeah, that Wizards Rockets game a few years ago, 155, 154 in regulation. And I think we had a Pacers game. I don't know if it was this year or last, 175, 174. Did not go to overtime. Where if I was a coach on one of these teams, I don't really know how I would feel because all right, we got the win, but going back to Thanos, Marvel, at what cost? Like what you're giving up everything and
Right.
you're winning, but nobody should be happy with a performance that includes 50 points, 12 assists, and +1. You have to really win those minutes that your best players are in the game, and that's what constitutes a good game.
Yeah, no doubt. I agree.
And let's talk a little bit about the Cavs. You were there once before. The team right now in a very weird spot because it's very rare in this NBA, especially now. A couple years ago with COVID issues and everyone was out. But now the Cavs have been without their top 3 starters for the last 4 or 5 games. No Mitchell, no Garland, no Mobley. They've beaten now the Rockets, the Hawks, the Jazz, the Bulls, and now most recently able to take down, amazingly, the Dallas Mavericks. Yes, Kyrie's out, but that's still a winning team. Hardaway, Exum, Derek Jones, Derek Lively, Grant Williams, Seth Curry was on fire until the last shot. And they have the great Luka Doncic, who's making another great MVP case this season. So what are your thoughts, Kevin, on this team? Because to me, watching this every night, 18-13 did not seem attainable, considering that and shout out to Craig Porter, but you start an undrafted rookie point guard, 2 forwards in Okoro and Wade who haven't proven themselves as scorers yet, and Max Strus, who's been very up and down, with Jared Allen for this recent stretch had actually been playing maybe the worst ball in Cleveland that he'd ever played.
I think they're steadying the ship. Especially when you got your key guys out, I feel like that's the time that other guys need to step up and you get your opportunity to play. And I feel like with all the wins that you just named, it seems like guys are they're taking advantage of their opportunity to show what they can do. And I think also when you get into a situation like that, you kind of got nothing to lose, so you can just go out there, play and relax. Just trying to have fun because you're like, not saying that you have a built-in excuse, but you kind of do. If you have some of your core players out, people are not expecting you to win most of these games. So you're going out there with no pressure. You could just go out there and ball. So I think that's what they're doing. They're doing a great job of it. I don't know when Donovan Mitchell will be coming back, but obviously he's the key to everything, especially if you guys want to make a great playoff run this year. But that's what it's all about, man. When you have your key guys out, you got to find a way to steady the ship, and that's what they're doing right now.
Yeah, no question. And I think as a general basketball fan, and obviously for yourself as a player, when you've played at any level, you're never going to have something you like or root for, right? Injuries or they struggle, you never turn off. You never turn it off. It's like, yeah, it might be a little disappointing, right? But you're always making the time to see them. Right? It's part of you.
Yeah, of course, of course. I think also what comes with that too is that I feel like you play when your main guys are out, you play more desperate. You play more with a sense of urgency where, if you got guys that you count on that are constantly in the lineup, you may play a little bit more relaxed or not up to your full potential. But I feel like this is the time where you can show that, our offense may revolve around this one guy, but we have other players on the court that can get it done. And like I said, this is the time that everybody's proven that. So I think they're still going to have continue having a great season, continue having a really good run until Donovan comes back. And yeah, I'm excited to see what you guys do in the playoffs because I do think you guys are going to make the playoffs, especially with the East is very top heavy.
Yeah.
But those last play-in spots to like 5 or 6, I feel like those are wide open. So
yeah, it's gonna be a fun race, no question. And the biggest thing, and then we'll move on to talking about the B1 league, the B League, excuse me, is that especially once you get out of the pickup realm and you're playing in college, you're playing in the NBA, you're playing professional, whenever someone goes down, those minutes become available. And for so many people that only get 1 or 2 years in the league, possibly, depending on what they can do to step in, you're at the end of your rookie contract, you haven't performed enough, you don't know what's next. be able to solidify a place on that first team, especially for Craig Porter, who's been on a two-way. So the Cavs have had so many different point guards, been undrafted on two-ways in these recent years. Now, Brandon Goodwin was one of them who played well but didn't stick around. RJ Nembhard played well, didn't stick around. Coming up from overseas, didn't stick around. Was Kevin Pangos, didn't even last one season. You think about all these guys, and then Craig Porter with these significant minutes, just putting on a show. And players like him, like Dean Wade, Isaac Okoro, who everyone has differing opinions on, right? They get their chance. They've been starting, and they look like they belong as 20-minute guys in the league, which if everyone was healthy, you may never get that chance in your whole career.
Exactly. It's all about taking advantage of your opportunities, and it's good to see when guys do that because a lot of other people have been in that position where they have had key guys go out and they get in a spot where they're getting a lot of minutes and they don't produce, or they're not as valuable as they might want to be. So I think it's really special when a guy comes in, especially with that pressure of because it's not like you're on Detroit or something. You guys actually have playoff expectations, so that comes with pressure. And I know how just playing in Cleveland, I know how passionate the Cleveland is about their basketball team, about their sports in general. So that's a lot of pressure. So to come in there and to pick up for a guy like Donovan Mitchell, who's a perennial All-Star, that's big time.
Absolutely big time. And now we will transition. We'll talk about some Japan. You're playing the B League, mentioned for the Sun Rockers Shibuya. And if you haven't watched Kevin Jones play in Japan, what you're missing right now is a guy that has expanded his game, now shoots the three. In 4 of your last 5, you've knocked in 3 triples. Rebounds are up, shot blocks are up, fouls are down. And just to confirm, it's 40-minute games, correct? 4 10-minute quarters?
Yeah, 4 10-minute quarters, yep.
All right, so Kevin Jones' last 5 games. We get the whole career stats. Look at this recent stretch, averaging about 33 minutes a night. You've hit 3 threes exactly, 6 attempts or less in all the games from downtown. So when you were in the NBA, back in 2012-13, it still wasn't exactly acceptable for a 4-5 to shoot from deep unless they had high percentages before they arrived. That you didn't start seeing the bigs. Brook Lopez, Nikola Vucevic among the examples spacing out. So with that said, if you were coming out of West Virginia now, Kevin Jones, going into his current season, how do you think now with this jumper, the perception of you may have been different?
Oh, it'd have been so much different. And I think there's a misconception because I've always shot the three. I've always shot the three. I felt like pretty well. Even if you go back to my high school numbers, I started shooting the three back then. Ever since I started playing basketball, which I consider myself a late bloomer, I didn't play organized basketball until I was in 6th grade. So where a lot of guys were born with a basketball in their hand, I just kind of figured it out a little bit early, just because I was taller than everybody around me. And my brother also played sports. He played football, but with my height and my size, he was like, you should try out for something, even if you don't like it. This might be opportunity for you. So I feel like I've always been able to shoot. I felt like throughout my career, I've played for coaches who haven't really been as accepting of me shooting that much. So whenever I did get opportunities, they were very few and far between. And on me, I didn't fully take advantage of those opportunities either. But I feel like now that I've expanded my game, coaches have been signing me because I can shoot, like as one of the main parts of my game, as a pick and pop guy, as a stretch four, which I consider myself fully now, along with the other parts of my game. But to answer your question, I feel like the perception of me would have been totally different just because that's the main thing guys do now, where it was really frowned upon when I first came out of college, because it's like you really seen the international bigs do it. You the guys from the US, they really were more mid-range scorers, more post scorers. So really, if you weren't a European guy and you shot threes, they kind of looked at you weird at that time. But now it's totally acceptable for everybody to do it. So I feel like I may have been born in the wrong era of basketball, but hey, man, uh, I still love my time, and I still feel like I'm doing what I love to do, and I feel like I'm still getting better each year.
And you can't ask for anything more than that, right? As you continue playing in your early 30s now, correct? 32, 33?
I'm 34. I just turned 34 this August.
That's right. I
This
did remember.
August.
You got the note. If I did remember, never miss a Cavs
Yeah,
birthday.
yeah,
34, Austin
yeah,
Carr
yeah,
year.
yeah.
And so, okay, you're playing in the B League. Your
Mhm.
jumper's working. Your game is a lot more unlocked. You're in a league right now that features several dozen NBA players, including 14 draft picks, one former first round pick, 13 former second round picks. Currently playing with a guy that more played in the league a little more recently than you did in Cheick Diallo. You mentioned earlier you played with Ryan Kelly for a couple seasons, who's known for his time with the Lakers, finished up with the
Mhm.
Hawks before going overseas as well. So it's on Cheick, this current season. You guys ever talk about your basketball past, your time in the NBA, or are you looking more at where you're at now, not dwelling on that, not reminiscing too much, and just kind of focusing on what's now and what's to come?
We talk about it a little bit. Actually, Czech just got here. We had a player change about a month ago in the season, and Czech actually played for this team that I'm on. He played there last season. I remember playing against him and us having to guard each other. So I remember him well from that from last year, and then obviously at his days at Kansas and all that stuff and throughout the league. So we talk about it a little bit, but we more focused on this season just because right now we haven't started out the best as a team. So he's came in since he's got back and provided a lot of energy for us. Great guy on and off the court, great teammate. So it's been fun getting to know him. Other than from competing against each other in basketball, so we just kind of keep it more to this season.
No, and definitely. And how has that kind of helped even, having a guy like that that's been as high as you were to push you and make you better in these practices before the games happen?
Oh, it's great, man. Just having that, iron sharpens iron. So just going against each other. He's an ultimate competitor. I'm an ultimate competitor. So event like we're just only going to make each other better. And right now we're at the point in the season where we need that because we have a very young team. I think we have the youngest team in the league as far as our local players, our Japanese guys. So them seeing us work as hard and compete as hard as we do, hopefully, that rubs up off on them, not only for this season, but just for the rest of their career. So just trying to set that example for them.
And it's been great to see. Obviously, you've been playing very well. And we look at, I mentioned there's been 14 drafts, just quickly running through. And if you add undrafted to it, you're getting so many other names. But 14 players that were drafted by an NBA team playing in the B League. Let's run through it quickly. You got Nick Fizakis, Josh Harrelson, a.k.a. Jorts, Quincy Miller, Ryan Kelly, one-time Cavalier Eric Murphy, Grant Jarrett, notable prospects from the OKC Thunder. Once upon a time, Johnny O'Brien, taken by the Bucks. Arturas Guidatis from Lithuania. You have Ben Bentel, played for the Pacers. Jake Layman now joining over there after a notable career with Portland and Minnesota. I mentioned Cheick Diallo, Henry Ellenson, and then Thomas Welsh, one of the more recent, who was drafted in 2018. Obviously, as I mentioned, you go undrafted, you're adding a heck of a lot more names to that list. The play and Jarrell Brantley, the final name, that is a member here. And there's so much talent. Troy Murphy's son also appears is playing in the league. That one is a cool surprise for me, growing up watching Troy. But the reason I mention this, Kevin, obviously yourself and the many others included that played in the NBA now over there. So with that number so high, and you may get this question a lot. You may roll your eyes at this question. I guess it depends who's asking in the context. But the fact that you have so many former players that played in the league that growing up, that was the goal. They didn't stay in that league. They ended up leaving, going overseas, playing whether it's Japan, England, wherever it is they go, Latvia, for example. Does that change the competition level, or is it really just about the then and now, like where you are today, not because you were there, you feel like you have to grind twice as hard to validate yourself in this new league?
Um, it depends on how you look. It depends on your everybody's personal outlook. I came into this league, talking about the Japanese league. I came into it humbly, just from a standpoint of everywhere I go, whatever I did in the past, it doesn't matter to me. I want to establish my legacy in this league that I'm currently playing in. So that's the mindset I went into it. And a lot of guys, some guys don't think like that. Some guys think that, what they've done in the past is automatically going to transfer over to whatever their league they're playing in now. But it doesn't always work like that. And just like any other league, it's an adjustment at first. I don't think anybody comes right into any new league just doing what they want. They have to get adjusted to the playing style. They have to get adjusted to the coaches, the culture, everything. So there's a lot that goes along with being a great player in different environments. So I just came into it humbly, just knowing that I'm in this setting. I'm a novice, so to speak. I'm a beginner. So I just try to learn as much as I can about the cultures, my teammates, and in this league, teams are very big on respect, honor, all that kind of stuff. So just being a great teammate on and off the court, getting to know my teammates, getting to know the coaching staff, everything else. And I think as a person, it's helped me mature, not only just in basketball but just in life in general. So I'm thankful for that.
And no question. I'm glad we can still watch you play basketball, that you have these opportunities, and that seeing so many great names out there. And anytime someone gets the opportunity, whether you know them before or not, people are coming to these games, people are watching these games, people are buying these jerseys because they love watching these guys play, and it goes on and on and on. It's the beautiful part of it, right? Because you have the opportunity to continue to come into these new situations. Everyone's got their own path. And then still you play while you're in your stripes. You're playing 75% of the minutes. You're playing to the best of your ability as a shooter because you're being given that chance. You're knocking down a high percentage, right? There's nothing better than that.
Right, exactly. And then it's also, on that player, if you're given the keys to, put in the work to be the best you can. So that's what I do. I put in the work every day to be the best shooter possible. I won't say I'm the best shooter ever, but I'm definitely above average, I would say. I would like to think, and I keep working constantly to get better, not just only on my shooting, but just in my game in general. And I could still do other things. I'm not just a pick and pop guy. I could still go in the posts. I still grab offensive rebounds and generate my points that way as well. Still, a willing defender. So I pride myself on being, you know, multi-talented and doing a whole lot of things and not just one thing. So that's one of the things I pride myself on.
All right. It's important to be able to do that. And a couple more questions here, a couple more topics rather, Kevin, then we will sign off. So you mentioned that you do still follow the NBA relatively closely. You're watching a lot of the West Coast games. So right now, you mentioned, we talked before, you mentioned some of the players you like. What teams do you find yourself drawn to rooting for in some of these matchups, and why, if you will?
Let me see. I'm a really big Golden State fan, regardless of what's going on with them now. Actually, they're getting on a little bit streak right now since the whole Draymond incident happened. Just because Steph Curry. How could you not love to watch Steph Curry and Klay Thompson play, regardless? And the fact that Chris Paul is their teammate now is still wild to me. Just watching guys like watching OKC Thunder and the way their young guys are growing up, and like I said, Shea Gilgeous-Alexander being the leader and the man that the player he's becoming. Anthony Edwards, his excitement has the number one team in the league right now. So it's crazy. Yeah, that's just for the West, and then obviously LeBron and the Lakers, and you're always going to be drawn to watching LeBron. And on the East, love watching obviously my former teammate Joe Mazzulla, head coach of the Celtics now, and all that they've been doing there, and the Bucks with Damian Lillard, and I'm really liking the watching the Knicks too. Man, I did not see like Jalen Brunson, what he's doing. I did not see that when he was with the Mavs. Like, I don't think anybody did, but what he's proven, and he's going to be an all-star this year, all NBA guy. It's crazy.
And then on top of that, the amazing thing for me outside of Cleveland has been the Sixers, because I was very low on them coming in. They had the James Harden drama. Didn't seem like they added that much to their roster. And even though none of the players from the James Harden trade have exactly dominated, I think when you bring in guys of the Batum caliber who comes in, sets the floor, spaces for you, Robert Covington at this point is more of a journeyman than really a high-impact player on every night. But he's been around the block. He's been an all-NBA first-team defender before. KJ Martin, just another good athletic guy to have in practice who can come and give you spot minutes. And even though his reputation is a little different, I still think the toughness that Marcus Morris can bring to a locker room, the floor spacing, and then Pat Bev and Kelly Oubre, when they've been on the court, the continued growth of DeAnthony Melton, who I really enjoy watching as a late-round pick in the NBA, who defends his tail off. He's 6'1", but no one, 6'1", 6'2", no one talks about him in those short guy conversations because he's never playing to his size. Haven't even touched on the Heat, Jaime Jaquez, who looks like a 5-6-year vet already.
Mm-hmm.
And then they're struggling a bit right now, but Tyrese Halliburton and the Pacers.
Mm-hmm.
The East is, it's very top heavy, Kevin. You're correct. But then you have these teams like the Hawks, who could go on a run. The Nets, who just need to get some pieces back, could go on a run.
Toronto, who's always been, who's always been pretty consistent, even though they're not doing that well as of late. But they could go on a run easily too, I think.
Yeah, and what's interesting about Toronto is they brought Dennis Schroeder off the bench last night. They did win by 30, but I guess it's always tough as a first-year coach to inherit a mostly existing roster and kind of do with it what they will. And you see a lot of coaches struggle with that. They've been okay. Everyone's still on the trading block. It sounds like outside of Gotti. I guess good to see Gary Trent getting a starting opportunity again. Jordan Wizards, that's overall our final current NBA. I have one other question for you, Kevin.
Yeah.
Current Wizards are kind of a mess, truthfully. They've won 5 games on the season. They did finagle their way onto NBA TV the other night. Jordan Poole and Kyle Kuzma are getting theirs sometimes, but it's clearly not working out. I don't even think they have a bad lineup, truthfully. Tyus Jones is number 1 assist to turnovers almost every season. Poole is supposed to be this scorer. Kuz is supposed to be this scorer. Avdia has proven himself as a nice little playmaking defensive wing. And Daniel Gafford is a top 6-7 shot blocker. But they're 5-30. Just thoughts on that team, what you think they should do. Because I feel bad, my last thought, Wes Unseld, because you get these coaches that are so nice, so cool as assistants. They get that first job, they have a terrible situation, and it's like, oh, they're going to be great. And then 2 years later, unfortunately, kind of a mess.
Right. To be honest, I didn't see it working out from the start. Just there's only one basketball. And between Jordan Poole and Kyle Kuzma, I just never seen that dynamic working out. Now one or the other, because I feel like Kyle Kuzma is a proven scorer in this league.
Yep.
Like, people can say what they want about Kyle Kuzma, he's a solid scorer in this league. Jordan Poole, coming from the situation from Golden State, I think he just needed a fresh start. I'm not sure if the Wizards was something, because I think they were looking for somebody to come and take over the franchise, and Jordan Poole, to me, is not that player. I feel like if Jordan Poole would be better going into a situation where he can help a more veteran team instead of going into a situation where he was looked at as one of the leaders. So, to me, I feel like obviously it might not happen this season, but that team just needs to be blown up. Like you said, they don't have a bad lineup, but the pieces just don't fit. Like, individually, they don't have a bad lineup. The pieces just don't fit together. So I didn't see it working from the beginning anyway, but I didn't see it being this bad either. And then I also expected more from Jordan Poole, just like individually. Even if the team was losing, I thought he was going to at least be putting up between 25 and 30, because I feel like he's a capable scorer as well. So I don't think personally he's having the season that everyone thought he would have.
I also think that they're lacking the veteran mentors at the moment, right? Outside of Danilo Gallinari, who's not able to play every night. I couldn't tell you how many players that have had valuable high-level experience, not only with the team, but on the court with the team on that roster. So they'll get a good pick, right? I think they'll get one of these top prospects, like a Ron Holland-esque guy, and they'll hope he can come in next season. Mateus Bazelis, I guess you'll see. But all right, last question for you here, Kevin, then we will sign off. It's been of note in these last couple of seasons that players in your era who started a couple years before you and kept going after, notably Boogie Cousins, John Wall, Kemba Walker, Dwight Howard, for example, who aren't exactly old. You guys are probably all very similar ages right now, somewhere in that 32 to 35 range, but they're out of the league. Kemba now playing in Monaco. I think John Wall right now is not. Tyreek Evans, I guess, another example of the drug suspension works a little differently. Dwight Howard, who's close to 40, but still dominating overseas. Boogie Cousins, who was last in the league a few seasons ago. So my question here, and we wrap up, are there any players that are a little bit on the older side, they're not young anymore, in that pool or beyond, that you think should still be playing in the NBA right now?
To be honest, all of them. I think the NBA is such a fickle thing, man, because it's like you could be there 20-point a game scorer, and then the next 2 seasons you can be gone, or for whatever reason it may be. Whether it could just be simply because you're older. It doesn't even have to be that your skills are diminished or anything. It just could be the fact that you're older, and then there's a hot a young prospect coming along, and that's nothing you can really do about that. So it's really just becomes a numbers game, even for the people who have already proven themselves, which is just crazy for me to think about that. But I think with given the opportunity, you mean to tell me that DeMarcus Cousins can't come back in the league and be right now and be a top 10 center? I can't see a scenario where he can't. You can't name it right now in today's NBA. I feel like you can't name me 9 better centers than DeMarcus Cousins. Kemba Walker's a little bit different. I think he was dealing with injuries like throughout the last couple years. So that's a little bit different. I get that. But even Kemba, I still think Kemba is even more capable of just coming in, being a veteran presence on the team, and still adding value to the team, just running the show. Uh, I As far as Dwight Howard, we know what Dwight Howard represents, and you mean to tell me that the Lakers couldn't use a Dwight Howard right now in their front court? I just I don't know. I think it just becomes a numbers game, and guys just get penalized for being older, which has always been weird. So I think all of those guys you named can still play in the league now.
Definitely. And then another name I wish he got more time was Jay Smoog, Josh Smith, because after that Pistons contract, he wasn't shooting the ball well. He was being pegged as a small forward, which he could never be outside of Atlanta, who actually knew how to utilize him. So he's playing with Monroe and Drummond. There's no space. He has to shoot. He was shot 28% from three in Atlanta for a couple of seasons. I thought he was one of the most explosive players of the generation, both sides of the ball. And you play with him in a video game, he'll block and dunk everything. He's even someone you could slide in as your 2K point guard because he's so fast and he's so quick and he's so explosive. He's blocking other guards. But my final thing, and then we'll wrap up. You mentioned a guy who could score 20 points per game and just be gone. He wasn't out of the league, and his career was very weird. But the name Mike James, there's two Mike James. There's Hero Mike James, there's NBA Mike James. What many people may have missed was in the 05-06 season. They got him simply for Rafer Alston right before the year. Mike James averaged 21 and 5 and 6 assists a night for the Raptors. They were a bad team. They traded him. They got TJ Ford on board, and they ended up going from 27 wins to 47, making the playoffs. They needed more with the Chris Bosh team, and that's fine. But Mike James just randomly never averaged more than 12 a game at 21 and 6 assists, and he's gone. So it has to be situational. And I think the biggest thing, Kevin, and then that's my final question for you, if you're going to put up these numbers, you better hope that you're lucky enough to do it on a good team, because if you're doing it on a team that's not winning, they're going 20 and 60, 30 and 50, 35 and 47. It's not going to get the same credit or attention, and people might just think you're putting up empty numbers.
Right, but then there are a lot of I can't name any off the top of my head right now, but there are a lot of guys that get rewarded for putting up great numbers on a garbage team just because they have all the opportunity in the world. Because if they don't take the shot, who else is? So I feel like there are people who get rewarded and get these big contracts, and then they go to another team and they're not nearly half the player that they was in the old team. But just because I think there's something to be said when expectations get into the mix. Because it's like, of course, you can ball out when nobody's expecting anything of you, and nobody's even really paying attention to your team. But then when all the lights are on you, I just give example like whenever somebody plays with LeBron and they've had a great season before, and now the LeBron attention, wherever he goes he commands attention. Now that's on you, and it's a different level of pressure, and now maybe those same shots you were making before you aren't making now due to the pressure. So I feel like that happens to a lot of people where they're great in one scenario, and then in another one, because of the pressure, they can't add up to what they did before. So I think that happens a lot as well.
And I think that's the prime example of the KD Russ Thunder when they were trying to fit pieces the last couple of seasons, whether it was Dion Waiters, Randy Foye. Kevin Martin was okay, a little bit of a different situation with him, but some of these players would shrink in the spotlight after arriving on a team that had title aspirations.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the beauty of the game. It's the beauty and the ugliness. You're great now, but you're bad tomorrow. We only remember today, that's what we remember as someone that watches the game with the eye of, all right, I'm trying to analyze what I'm seeing, versus the eye of the player who sees it all happening. Everyone's been there before. You're having a good day here, but a bad day there, and it's all about the bad day. It's about the next one. Because if you dwell on past success, you're never going anywhere. You're going to be stuck there. It's going to be Back to the Future 3. You're stuck there. You can't go anywhere.
Exactly. No, I agree. And I think there's one last thing. There's this misconception that, if guys go play overseas that they can't play in the NBA. Like I don't think that. Or if a guy, gets cut from a team, it's because he couldn't perform. Like sometimes it's simply just a numbers game. And a lot of things is about who which I feel like sometimes I felt a victim of during my my brief NBA career. Just like as far as like numbers game, I didn't have the most well-known representation as far as like agents and stuff like that, where other guys maybe will get on a team, a summer league, get a good look because of who was representing them. But even in my situation, a lot of people thought that just because I chose to play overseas because I didn't want to keep on chasing the dream, that I didn't have that I wasn't talented enough. And I don't think that's true with a lot of guys. Just because you're talented or whatever, it doesn't mean that your spot is just reserved on a roster. It's a lot of things that have to fall in place for you to get certain looks. So
yeah, no, absolutely. Very much a numbers game. You look at the transaction window, the RotoWire Spotrac, you see who's getting cut, signed every day, all season, whether it's in the G League, whether it's in the NBA, off season, during the season, deadline. There's just so many victims because there's so many players that are so good, but there's only going to be 150 starters over the course of the year. And then you add in maybe another 130 to 150 key bench players. So there's no more than, and when you get to the playoffs, you get 16 teams. You're maybe getting, if you think 16 teams, 8 to 10 man rotation, you're getting 125 to 160 guys getting meaningful minutes out of everybody in the world.
Right.
Once you get there. So it is a numbers game. You just have to try and survive, get that chance, and hope that you become enough of a household name. But as we've learned, it's a tremendous product, but it is a business at the end of the day.
No doubt.
Kevin Jones, a pleasure to get together to talk NBA, to talk B-League, and just to talk ball. Somebody that knows the game, that's been around the game, and is still partaking in the game.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
He's Kevin Jones, Zach Weiss. This is Across the Cavs on Network 216. We will see you next time.